Hello everyone.
Hi, I'm Bree and this is Memo.
So today we're going to compare the first 100 days of Nixon and Trump in order to make a connection between their type of government, their ideas, and their goals as presidents of the United States.
The importance of the first 100 days started with Franklin D. Roosevelt because on these first 100 days he made a big change in his policy and therefore he had a lot of laws established which changed the whole government of America. Since then, a lot of presidents have been using this countdown to check out how will their policy, how will their government look like throughout their presidency. So let's check out how this goes.
Woo!
The first 100 days of Donald Trump as President of the United States can be summed up as these several actions he had made so far. In terms of business regulation, he made an attempt to cut down on the burden of small businesses, described as two-out, one-in approach. The order asked government departments that request new regulation to specify two other regulations they will drop. Some categories of regulation will be exempt from the two-out, one-in clause, such as those dealing with the military and national security. One of his most controversial actions related to travel ban are the suspension of refugee programs for 120 days and cap on 2017 numbers. Another one is the indefinite ban on Syrian refugees, ban on anyone arriving from 7 Muslim-majority countries with certain expectations, and cap of 50,000 refugees. The effect was felt at airports in the United States and around the world as people were stopped boarding US-bound flights or held when they landed in the United States. Enacted pretty much straight away, but these are battles ahead. Federal judges brought to hold to deportations and legal rulings appear to have put an end to the travel ban, much to the president's displeasure. On Mr. Trump's first day as presidential candidate in June 2015, he made securing the border with Mexico a priority. Pledged repeatedly at rallies to build a wall along the southern border, saying it would be big, beautiful, and powerful. Now he has signed a pair of executive orders designed to fulfill that campaign promise. One order declared that the United States will create a contiguous physical wall or other similarly secure, contagious, and impassable physical barrier. Second order pledges to hire 10,000 more immigration officers and to revoke federal grant money from so-called sanctuary cities which refuse to deport undocumented immigrants. It remains to be seen how Mr. Trump will pay for the wall, although he has repeatedly insisted that it will be fully paid for by the Mexican government, despite their leaders saying otherwise. On his second full working day, the president signed two orders to advance construction of two controversial pipelines, the Keystone XL and Dakota Access. Mr. Trump told reporters the terms of both deals would be renegotiated and using American steel was a requirement. Donald Trump wants to ban what is called the Mexico City policy, first implemented in 1984 under the Republican President Ronald Reagan, that prevents foreign governmental organizations that receive any U.S. cash from providing counseling or referrals for abortion or advocating for access to abortion services in their country. The withdrawing from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, once viewed as the crown jewel of Barack Obama's international trade policy, was a regular punishing bag for Mr. Trump on the campaign trail. This decision takes effect immediately. In the meantime, some experts are worried China will seek to replace itself in the deal or add TPP nations to its own free trade negotiations. The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, excluding the United States. Trump has said he would end illegal immigration and suspend immigration from terror-problem regions. He also said he would stop illegal immigration, deport all criminal aliens. President Donald Trump warned in a phone call with his Mexican counterpart that he was ready to send US troops to stop bad hombres down there. unless the Mexican military does more to control them, according to the annexed part of a transcript of the conversation obtained by the Associated Press. Political analyst and former presidential spokesman Rubén Aguilar notes Peña Nieto had enjoyed an apparent spike in his low approval levels as Mexicans rail around him for publicly challenging Trump in the border wall disputes. Mexico has consistently said that it would not pay for the wall and opposes it. Before the phone call, Peña Nieto concealed a planned visit to the United States. The first fight with Mexico last week arose over trade as the White House talked about 20% tax on imports from the key US ally to finance the wall after Peña Nieto abruptly scrapped his January 31st trip to Washington.
From 1969 to 1974, Richard Nixon was 37th President of the United States of America. His foreign policy was mainly focused on China, Asia, and Japan. Nevertheless, regarding Mexico, we have the following issue. Don't turn our back on the Southern Hemisphere. Among the developing nations of Africa, Latin America, East Asia, and South Asia, the path to economic development remains strewn with obstacles. Corrupt government officials, mismanaged economic policies, and misguided development strategies hold back the potential of talented and hardworking peoples of every continent. The Southern Hemisphere holds unlimited potential for success, but it also faces daunting odds. We are therefore presented with an immense challenge. If we turn our back on the countries of the Southern Hemisphere, we will never narrow the widening gap between the developed and underdeveloped worlds. And if the future becomes a tale of two worlds, the foundation of the future peace and stability will have been erected on soft ground. Regarding trade and foreign policy, Nixon said that we should improve the effectiveness of third world economic assistance, reduce trade barriers to exports from the underdeveloped world, to promote economic growth. Foreign trade, not foreign aid, should be our principal instrument. By removing trade barriers, these countries have the chance to specialize in industries in which they enjoy a competitive advantage over the rest of the world. Facilitate debt relief. The ultimate answer to debt crisis lies with the underdeveloped world. At the same time, Western governments must insist that banks that recklessly lend buildings to uncreditworthy states bear their share of the burden. Improve the effectiveness of economic assistance. We must face up to the fact that in our past, our foreign aid has done as much harm as it has done good. We should not extend aid without attaching strings with clearly defined and measurable goals. Finally, on immigration, help underdeveloped world to avoid flood of refugees. In addition to our moral obligation to help developing countries, we have a major economic and strategic interest at stake. 1. We will benefit if we can unlock the vast untapped economic potential of these countries. 2. If we ignore the Southern Hemisphere, we risk being dragged into potentially deadly regional conflicts. And 3. Unless we foster economic opportunity in the underdeveloped world, our borders will be overwhelmed by a flood of economic refugees. The success of the four Asian tigers, Taiwan, South Korea, Hong Kong, and Singapore, should serve as a positive example that less developed countries can make the transition from poverty to prosperity. The last entries can be found on Seize the Moment, America's Challenge in a Superpower World, which was Nixon's ninth book and was published in 1992. On October 31, 1969, Nixon declares that Latin America must be responsible for its own social and economic progress. A critical issue between the bilateral relationship of the United States and Mexico was the Operation Intercept, a campaign by President Nixon to stop the narcotics and marijuana smuggling caused gigantic traffic jams at the U.S. border to Mexico in 1969. Right now, Donald Trump's plan to build a wall on the border with Mexico bears many of the hallmarks of a strategy used by President Richard Nixon nearly 50 years ago. The result of this long-forgotten incident carries a warning for those who think that Trump's bellicose rhetoric is bound to backfire.
In hindsight, illegal immigration never much concerned Nixon. Instead, he was looking for a way to distract America's attention from the expansion of the Vietnam War in the face of growing domestic opposition. As the 1970 midterms approached, Nixon was horrified to see that crime was rising in every category, followed by the FBI from burglary to murder. Therefore, there was someone to blame. But Turkey was the source of the most of the heroin flooding into the United States. But Nixon couldn't very well afford an entanglement with Eastern Europe. As a result, Mexico became the next most convenient target. The American plan to eradicate the marijuana fields was initially brought up to the Mexicans in June 1969. But we told them in a diplomatic language to go peace up a road. Actually, almost no marijuana was seized. By mid-October 1969, with the press and a wide swath of his own administration railing to Mexico's side, Nixon finally called off the operation. In a dramatic overnight rehearsal of opposition, the New York Times reported, the United States bowed to Mexican demands. The plan worked. There was never an expectation that the operation would go on indefinitely. It was a way for Nixon to convince Mexico to cooperate on his terms. And well, he got his way. Indeed, by early 1970, Operation Intercept had morphed into the fussier Operation Cooperation, and the Mexican government was no longer turning a deaf ear to Nixon's demands. Later on, as the war on drugs issue was being managed, President Nixon wrote a letter to our president, Díaz Ordaz, on November 18, 1969. Quote, I believe also that Mexico and the United States, sharing as we do a common border, have a particularly close and constructive relationship and particular reason to maintain it. In this connection, Mr. President, I want to express my personal regret for the friction which Operation Intercept has caused in the relations between our two countries. Operation Intercept was conceived as one element in a major campaign to combat the traffic in narcotics from whatever source. It was not intended to single out Mexico, nor to give offense to Mexico. I want to give you my personal assurances on this point. My concern about the narcotics problem remains grave. However, I am very pleased that agreements was reached between our two governments last month to establish a joint working group. I am confident that the working group will find means to strengthen our cooperation in the common fight against drugs. Sincerely, President Richard Nixon.
So tell us, Brie, what is the conclusion?
As we have seen, Memo, these first 100 days define what would the government look like throughout these 4 years. And therefore, since we are neighbors, we have to be really aware of what is going on because there's a lot of interaction happening. And without it, I think we will be not beneficiated and it will damage us because this bilateral relationship is part of our daily lives. But also, what we have to consider if this relationship is broken, Memo.
I mean, guys, we must be prevented in order to adapt our lives and not get conflicted by this situation. We must be aware that it's time to get unified as a nation and work towards well-being and progress, not as individuals but as a whole, in order to build up a better nation.
I think I like that.
Oh, really?
Oh!